machine for working, modern office buildings. The skyline of the CBD is tall and mighty, filled with high-rise buildings filled with corporate workers and ideas. Marcus Barlow was a believer. He wanted to push Melbourne into the future, and with his building the Manchester Unity Building he certainly did. The Gothic masterpiece, standing tall on the corner of Swanston Street and Collins Street, was a beacon of hope for those living in the Great Depression and a source of inspiration for designers to come. The nature of creating architecture based on human circumstances has continued throughout history, from Marcus Barlow to environmentally friendly office buildings like the CN2 building. Designers must construct for people and their circumstances. Modernist Mr. Marcus Barlow was the mastermind behind the Manchester Unity Building. Born in 1890, he worked as an architect during the Great Depression and World War II. Living through the hardship of economic collapse and war, Barlow developed a social consciousness and turned his attention from domestic to commercial architecture. Author of Modern Times, The Untold Story of Modernism in Australia, Anne Dane said, "There is no such thing as Australian art or English art. Art is universal." He believed Melbourne needed to modernise and follow in the footsteps of big cities like New York and Chicago, who were leading in the creation of skyscraper urbanism. The glistening mountain on the corner of Swanston Street and Collins Street is the Manchester Unity Building. The skyscraper's main body reaches 132 feet, with the additional towers reaching another 78 feet. Barlow's contribution to this massive feat was critical to Melbourne's development. Barlow's design stood outside the contemporary construction regulations. The Manchester Unity Building is an example of a smart plan being well executed. For example, limited financial capacity demanded efficient planning. Barlow created a detailed architectural schedule and prepared a large amount of preliminary work so that construction time could be kept to a minimum. Barlow stated this point must be accurately determined by the architect before the tenders are called for the erection of the building. In 1932, the idea of a skyscraper was spreading to cities all over Australia and was a must-have in a modern city. Modern Times, The Untold Story of Modernism in Australia, describes this new wave of design. Driven by city beautiful planning ideas that dreamed of combining Paris with a limit-height Chicago, the commercial palazzo stretched vertically to 8 and 10 stories was preferred and the most popular building type. The Manchester Unity Building served multiple purposes. It was first and foremost an office building, but also featured shops, making it the ultimate hive for consumerism. As the suffering city of Melbourne looked for a symbol of hope, Barlow's Manchester Unity Building helped restore prosperity and hope to the impoverished population. For as long as architecture has existed, designs have been developed and stylized in a way to worship. In 1932, there was a new god to worship, capitalism. Brave New World, Australia 1930 states, bookended by the Great Depression and ending with the Second World War, which was declared in 1932. This was a period characterized by both optimism and despair. The modernization of Australian cities was all about restoring confidence and recovering from the loss of faith. The Manchester Unity Building became a structure to worship as it symbolized the restoration of the economy through its potential for both commercial and retail use. The glitzy infrastructure was a sign Australia would embrace the go-ahead technology of the United States, says Modern Times, The Untold Story of Modernism in Australia, and life and development would return. The Manchester Unity Building was the first building in Melbourne to have a lift. It reintroduced decoration using high-quality design. The Art Deco and commercial Gothic architecture was a standout, and the building became an iconic landmark of Melbourne. This slowly but surely started to restore confidence to the people as Melbourne started to show itself as a first-class modern city once again. The Manchester Unity Building featured many modernist design principles. Art Deco ideas are prevalent within its design. The idea of a building being individual without being minimal is seen in the use of the latest building concepts of steel, of glass, and of concrete, says Denise Whitehouse, to create an ornate exterior and interior. Unlike the ideas of the Bauhaus, who tried to minimize connection and create distance from culture and history through simplistic and clean designs, Art Deco understands that individualism doesn't just have to come from complete lack of ornamentation and a focus on simplicity and anti-historical ideas. Over time, any structure will become attached to some time and some culture. Art Deco tries to stand on its own and be different, and thinks you may as well have fun while doing it. Marcus Barlow had a theme, shown in his Century building and other designs. He featured terracotta tiles, which are a great trial of mass production, says Denise Whitehouse. The use of these tiles was another example of modernisation in Melbourne. There was now the ability to produce high-quality materials in mass quantities. Other materials used in the Manchester Unity building create an image of shine and wealth. These included brass, copper, steel, concrete, and glass. The building features all-over decoration from the ceiling to the mosaic floor. In the time between 1932 and 2006, the economy recovered and the world began to invent, create, and thrive again. However, with the continued industrialization, new issues arise for the design world to tackle. Industrialization caused environmental damage and isolated city dwellers from nature. Staff were housed in dated office buildings which, although centrally located to the town hall, were near the end of their lifespan, says the City of Melbourne, so it was time to birth sustainable office buildings. Started with the CN2 building. Located on Little Collins Street, this building is a fully functional workspace as well as an environmental asset. The designed by Hanson Yuncken firm was the first building in Australia to receive a 6-star green rating, setting a new standard for environmental architecture. The CN2 building played an interactive role between the urban city environment and the natural environment. Connecting these two settings provides a foundation for a cooperative city of functional workspaces and practical environmentalism. Design elements of the CN2 building focused on using eco-friendly materials, creating a sustainable structure, and introducing nature to modern design. Nature was used as an inspiration for the facade. Not only did this green look provide an aesthetic appeal, it also accommodated its occupants' needs as it moderated the climate within, tapered the ventilation, and integrated daylight. Opposed to modern inventions, the designers opted to use materials that had a natural climate control property, such as concrete, which is used to make the floors. Concrete has a natural heating and cooling property. They aimed to be as sustainable as possible, even the timber used was recycled. There was a focus on being beneficial rather than just providing a functional building. The design team wanted the CN2 building to be a pleasant place to work because materials used in a building not only have an impact on the environmental performance, they also affect the health of its occupants, says the City of Melbourne. The design mixed architecture with environmental science in order to provide a positive workspace. It achieves this through the promise of 100% fresh air, as the building has an air change every half hour. The City of Melbourne has praised their efforts, contending that the CSIRO has undertaken indoor air quality tests during summer and winter conditions. In both assessments, the indoor air quality for weeks of assessment was rated as very good. This is done by using wind turbines, which are used to extract old air and bring in fresh new air. Another environmentally friendly design feature also included a shower towers and phase change matters being used to produce and store cold water. This is achieved by using metal bowls which contain phase-changing materials, and the bowls act like a battery and are used to cool down water, says the City of Melbourne. Solar energy is used for heating and hot water. The design takes advantage of good solar access as it's located within the 40-metre height limit of the CBD and there are no taller buildings shading it. While stylistically different, these two buildings have similarities hidden in their core. One of the key similarities is that both show that architects will always design in a way to support people through crises. We see this in the Manchester Unity building through its groundbreaking construction elements, such as being the tallest building in Melbourne at the time and being the first building in Melbourne with a lift. They needed to know luxury, wealth, and style would return to the city, and Barlow gave them this hope through ornamentation and decoration in his design. Having had their economic troubles resolved, Melbourne's newest construction needed to address newly developed crises in environmentalism and sustainable design. They needed an environmentally friendly building to reassure them that the health of the planet was a priority of the government in the face of climate change. It was important to show that there was hope for the future of the planet while keeping our modern working life. In the 1950s and 1960s, there was a push from the government to support the consumer and help our economy flourish by participating in it. This led to a mass production of goods and a mass development of real estate. The CN2 building is a product of the damage caused by the era of the Manchester Unity building and consumerism. With the knowledge we have now, we understand that mining, using fossil fuels, and running large machinery for all hours of the day can have an extremely damaging impact on the environment. It's now very important to design, live, and work in a green way. Another major change is initially Australia looked to the world for inspiration. The Manchester Unity building looked to America for ideas on how to modernise. But now America and the rest of the world look to Australia and the CN2 building for inspiration. The opinion of designers and the public aren't the only thing to change modern design throughout the years. Economic downfall leads to capitalism worship, and climate change scares lead to environmentally friendly designs. An author, Buckminster Fuller, says the best way to predict the future is to design it. Both designs push limits, from being the tallest building to the most sustainable.